Morning, I'd like to open the meeting now. Everyone is here. Thanks for showing up on this beautiful day. Hopefully we can go through this quickly so you can get on the beach or whatever you're doing. Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
The agenda.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Second. Next item is any discussion and then ultimate approval of the minutes of May 21st, 2022. Do I have any, do I have any a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Are there any changes that anybody would like to make? No changes. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I approve. Now we come to the announcements. Susan, NRDC? No meeting. Okay. Scott, do you have an update on activity of the council, please?
I do, thank you. The council met yesterday. The one exciting note is that the fireworks are back on for 2022, so that will happen. It was a little touch and go there for a minute. And then the other item was the council reviewed and voted to table the feasibility study for the walkway on the Walcheck Dematitis property and the restoration of the wetlands in light of the town's current work backlogs and committed funds at the moment. A lot of stuff is breaking through in terms of work that was put on hold during the pandemic. So the town has a pretty big list of things to accomplish over the next year or so. In light of that, the council voted to table that for the moment.
Scott, is there any thought of naming the town property anything other than the Walcheck property in the future? Not that I have any problem with
It's
the
probably
name.
a
It's
good
just-
idea.
It brings
Yeah.
back memories.
Yeah, I'm sure the council would accept any recommendation the Planning and Zoning Commission made on that.
Okay. John?
Scott, fireworks are going to be on the 4th, on Monday, the 4th.
So I know the pandemic has shaken up a lot of things, but the 4th of July is still on the 4th of July this year. So yeah,
Okay.
I understand somebody asked that at the meeting yesterday.
there are no dumb questions.
And and the only thing that would stop that, my understanding, is that if we get another nor'easter and the beach is less than, what, 300 feet?
300 feet,
Okay.
correct.
Very good, thank you. Well, we got enough little kids here, we could probably fill that beach up to get them out there.
As long as they don't make any holes while they're doing it.
That's right. We can't have any tents either.
That's right.
That's for you, Patrick. Are there any comments that the commissioners would like to make? Yes, John.
Mr. Chairman, this morning, I was went to Hawkers to pick up newspapers. And I just happened to park next to one of the town Bethany Beach Public Works trucks. And in the rear window was a little decal that said, "Plant trees." And it just struck me, and I mentioned it today because that has been a topic of our meeting last week, and it's going to be a topic today. And that's one of the things that the town is trying to do, is to be a good Arbor Foundation citizen. Anyway, it just struck me as ironic.
Okay.
I did notice that the town recently achieved Tree City USA designation for 2021, so continuing to push that forward.
Good. Anybody in the audience have a question? Okay, very good. We'll move along. New business. First item under new business is to consider and possibly vote to recommend to the town council the rezoning of the town of Bethany Beach lands identified as tax map and parcel number 134-13, 19-62 from R1 residential district to municipal open space recreation facility and educational district, or other than more. Susan.
No, that's basically the Walcheck Dematitis property, which is all one parcel now. So it has one parcel number, and they wish to rezone it because it's owned by the town, as all property owned by the town is designated as more.
Any comments?
Make a motion to approve and recommend the vote.
Do I have a second? Are there any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Second, next item, discussion of the Southern Low County Stormwater Design Manual. I assume everybody got a hard copy as well as, I think Mark sent out the electronic copy for us. Thank you, Mark. It's one of the first times I ever saw it. Gee, I like this. It's electronic. This is it. The Southern Low County is
Get a copy.
South Carolina, so a little bit bigger than Bethany Beach. I've actually, believe it or not, read it, cover to cover, and I was very overwhelmed with the amount of information in there. In my opinion, a lot of it, you know, it's very nice, but really has not too much to do with the town of Bethany Beach, especially our size. But with that said, this is a discussion item, so if anybody has any questions, and I see somebody does, because I see blue markers there. Oh, okay.
No.
But, yeah, I'm just opening up for discussion.
I think it's important to note that the reason that we and you have this manual in front of you is because the person who was in charge of preparing this report for the Southern Country, or Southern Low Country, has offered to help us with our guidelines. So it may not be as much of us ripping pages out and pasting them into our guidelines as much as it is kind of gleaning whatever information we can from it and using it as to have an informed discussion with that person.
And and I agree with that, because that's how I viewed it when I went through it. I said, a lot of it doesn't have much to do with us, but there were some areas that I said, well, that's a pretty good idea, and that's not bad, so, okay.
I have a
Well,
question.
yeah, it's open for discussion.
Okay, Scott, is he going to come here to help us at our meetings, or how are we going to do this?
To my understanding, the town manager is working on getting a proposal from McCormick Taylor to do just that. And so I think that would happen here at our meetings. But I'll let anybody else weigh in if they know differently, but. We're going down. We're all flying down. We're all riding down there in the town bus. No, I think they will be here. I think it's a she, actually, not a he. So I don't know that you may not want to have an exhaustive discussion about it. It may be sort of getting prepared to have that conversation with them when the contract gets finalized and they're here. But I think the original intent, the discussion happened with the town manager. She reviewed our notes on pervious paving and noted that there were other ways to achieve similar results, and there might be alternative paths to allow for some impervious paving on your lot as long as the stormwater was directed properly. It's those sorts of things that may become useful to us as we work on finalizing that ordinance while it's still pending.
Our assistant town manager's here. Don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any comments you'd like to address to us?
Catherine Ellis is the person from Taylor and McCormick that would be coming. And I'm sure this will be specific to our geotechnical, geography or geology. So, but some of these things that are in this plan are very much, or will be very similar to what you'll see for us too. So I think it's a great project to work on, and it will be very interesting to develop.
Good, thank you. John?
Mr. Chairman, I actually went through this twice, the hard copy. Once online and then twice the hard copy. And as Scott said, this particular document is focused on a wider lens or a wider screen, and better suited probably for like Sussex County. But having said that, there are, I want to just give 2 or 3 takeaways. At the very outset, when they're talking about what are the principles and so forth, I know many people think I'm fixated on trees right now, and I probably am, but there's, they talk about vegetated buffer systems and clearing and grading and tree conservation, land conservation and stormwater outfalls. And they make the point that conserving trees and other vegetation at each site by planting additional vegetation and all, how that's a good thing. Elsewhere in the document, they have a number of charts. In fact, I learned a new word as I was going through this called bioretention. But there are some charts in here about shrubs and so forth that are particularly good in the low country. And I'm not saying that all of these apply here, but some of them would, and I hope that in whatever comes out of our local effort, that we're able to incorporate some versions of this, because I think it would be a great asset to people and developers to have an array of vegetation or shrubs and all to pick from. And additionally, in addition to the shrubs and all, they also have plants and they also have trees. It's a great, for someone who is not an arborist or can't even take care of his knockout roses. I just found this of great help. And finally, in the back of this document is a list of the various resources, various places to go if you have questions or whatever. And so I found, I didn't find this as daunting as I thought it was going to be to go through it. And I'm sure I don't use the term bioretention in the classic sense, but you're going to hear it again later today as we talk about some other things. So thank you for making this available. And Susan, oh, you have a copy. There's probably some people around here in the town government that could use this better than I now that I've been through it. So I'm going to donate my hard copy unless you, Mr. Chairman, tell me that I have to keep it for further homework.
You can borrow mine, John.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, I thought it was also very helpful, and I'm happy that we have had it to get started on our own.
Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering, should we, I know we have, the owner, Evergreen, is here, and he's under old business. I don't know how long the other stuff's gonna take. Could we, so he doesn't have to listen to us, could we flip-flop? Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay. We'll go to old business. Item number A is continuation of the review and possible vote on the application for minor subdivision property identified as lots 77, 78, 79, Block 28 at 610 Fifth Street in the R1 zoning district. Susan?
It's the same as last time.
I think we were
It's,
you were
they're
supposed to.
requesting to subdivide the parcel into 3 lots. The property is zoned R1 residential. Pursuant to Appendix 3, Table of Dimensional Requirements in the R1 district, the minimum street frontage for interior lots is 40 feet. Minimum lot area for single dwelling lots is 5,000. The minimum street frontage for corner lots is 50. Minimum lot area, 5,000. The parcel consists of 16,000 square feet, has 160 feet of frontage on Fifth Street, and is 100 feet deep. There's, the dwelling that was on there has been demolished, as we all know. The applicant is proposing to create 3 lots, basically reestablishing original lot lines. There's lot 77 will have 50 feet of frontage on Fifth and 5,000 square feet. Its address will be 612 Fifth Street. Lot 78 will also have 50 feet of frontage on Fifth. There's a lot of Fs in here. And 5,000 square feet of area. Its address will be 610 Fifth Street. Lot 79 is a corner lot, and it will have 60 feet of frontage on Fifth, and its address will be 608 Fifth Street. And a reduced copy of the plat was submitted. They have also now submitted, per the Planning Commission's request, a tree plan that showed where existing trees were removed and proposed trees will be planted.
I know
I have a large copy if anybody wants me to pass it down and look at it.
thank you. I know the minutes showed that you were supposed to be happy with it or something. Yeah, acceptable to you.
Based on all of our requirements in the tree ordinance, it meets all of them.
Good. That's what I need to hear. Okay, it's open for discussion. Everybody has a copy. Andrea gave us that, and the big one's there if you want it. John?
Tim, are you available to answer questions about this? Yes. Could I ask you to come to the...
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman. Jim, first of all, thank you for the revised tree planning.
Oh, excuse me, let me interrupt you. Could you state your full name for your, the record?
Tim Naughton with Evergreen Homes.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for a couple of changes that I saw. One, if I'm not mistaken, it is clear now that the driveways for these 3 properties would be gravel or some kind of pervious material rather than impervious.
Yes, that is, Susan suggested that, and we talked a little bit last time about the fact that there are some impervious regulations coming into effect in Bethany. I don't think they're active currently, but she suggested that we go ahead and put these together on these lots to create more pervious area, which we did.
Thank you for doing that. I also, if I'm correct, and I may not be, it appears to me that in this, the plan that most recently submitted, that you actually increased the number of trees, new trees that you were going to plant. I think it went from like 7 to 10.
Yes, when we cross-referenced Google Earth with the photos of the site and the engineering study, we came down to 7 trees that were taken outside of the building envelope or affected area, and then we boosted that up to 10 trees to replant. In addition, we planted, I think it was 25 or so, 30 smaller, they don't calculate as trees, but shrubs and I think grasses around. And then we showed that we were going to sod all of the lots and put in irrigation so that we don't have an issue with seeding or seed not coming up. So we've increased the budget pretty dramatically.
I will note at the outset here that your plan does in fact meet the current requirements that are in our zoning. But I'd like to, I just want to ask you a couple of questions about that. Current zoning says that if you replace a tree, it has to be 3 inches in diameter at a certain height. And I'm sure you're going to comply with that. But 3 inches is not the maximum, that's the minimum. And I would like to just have a quick discussion with you about whether or not you and your arborist or your designer had any discussions about alternative types of trees to the ones that are on your plan. And I ask that only as somebody that doesn't know jack about it, but having just been through the Low County thing and a whole array of other types of trees and so forth, whether there was discussion about the types of trees to plant before you decided on the pin oaks or whatever you came up with.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of discussion on this. So the code requires that you plant trees similar or to the species of what you removed. So that's why we initially went with those trees. In Sussex County specifically here, there are only certain trees that survive and are hardy on a longer basis. So you need to stick with those trees. We try to come in sometimes and we plant these flowering trees and exotic species and things like that, and they just don't last. So there are certain species, and these species will survive in this area. As much as we'd love to get, more flowering things here, or fancy trees, there are just a certain number of trees that acclimate to this area, so we talked about that. We also talked about size of tree. Obviously, as a builder-developer, we're always watching numbers, so we go right to code. We talked about, can we get larger trees? And believe it or not, trees, right now, like some building materials, are hard to get. Certain trees and certain sizes are. So like we have a shortage of steel, we have a shortage in concrete right now. Trees and landscaping are coming under that, guys, too. It's unbelievable, but landscapers are struggling with tree inventory. So we made the decision to go to more trees, to add 3 of the same caliber, rather than to increase size or get to an exotic species that wouldn't survive. So this was our arborist working with us on this particular plan. It's always easier to get more quantity, smaller trees right now than it is to get larger caliber trees. Nobody wants to move them. Nobody really has them in inventory because of the construction boom, so the smaller are better. In his opinion, hardy is the #1 issue because you have to plant something that's going to survive, or you're just going to be back every season replanting it.
Thank you very much. I know on your plan that you have designations for shrubs and so forth without identification. And I would just opine that having, again, just look through this Low County handbook, there's 2 or 3 pages arrayed of plants and shrubs and all that they think are good. I don't know where in Delaware, I know we don't in Bethany Beach have a list like that, but I would just encourage you to and you may have already done it, talk to some of the conservation efforts that are around here to help identify the potential types of plants and shrubs to put into your plan.
Okay.
And that's, that's not a requirement, but I would just throw that out as an idea.
Okay.
I hope you don't have any problems getting trees because, and Susan, you'll have to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I believe that once your project is done, before you can get your certificate of occupancy, those trees have to be planted. Okay? So just make sure that you're in discussions with Susan because that, my understanding, that's a requirement.
Yeah, the code for the city gives you some flexibility, which is nice. It gives you, I think, 3 months to plant some of the trees that are cut down. And the reason they do that is because, say we finished in the middle of August, nobody wants us to plant trees in the middle of August. So we'll hold those trees to middle of October, and it increases the survival rate dramatically. So it's nice to have that flexibility. Most municipalities will do that, and it's with the idea that they want it to survive as much as we do.
The reason that I mentioned that, I had a discussion with the building inspector about the potential of requiring a performance bond. Under our zoning, we have the ability to require a performance bond to ensure that replacement trees are in fact done. And the building inspector talked me out of that idea with our discussion that the certificates of occupancy would be tied to making sure that those trees were there. And I know that you probably don't care for some of the questions that I asked last time or this time, but I have, because of what happened, I was not ready to cut any slack, meet the requirements of this, but I was certainly would have been prepared to ask for a performance bond just because of the lack of time and attention at the beginning of this. And I just share that with you. That's all the questions I have, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else have any questions?
I think John asked them.
Tim, I do have one. I know at the last meeting you said you weren't quite ready to decide what the structures were going to look like. Is this pretty much locked in at this point?
Yes, these we ran the calculations for impervious and pervious, and we cited, like I said, the driveways on there. So I think there could be a couple tweaks, but this is 99.9% what's going there.
John?
To beat a dead horse.
Not you.
I'm sure, as a longtime developer in this community, I'm sure you're aware of the requirement that we have that whatever is built, there have to be sufficient parking places on the property tied to the number of bedrooms. And I'm sure that that's accounted for in this, but I would just put it on the record that off-street parking, if you will, is also a requirement tied to this.
Any other questions? Scott?
Actually, I just wanted to make a couple comments. Number one, I think in our last conversation, we talked about ensuring the long-term viability of whatever trees are planted. I just wanted to point out that I think Mr. Nam's going above and beyond by installing an irrigation system to ensure that the trees and shrubs and grasses that get planted, thrive. I just also wanted to point out, not necessarily as it relates to this project, but as it relates to future projects, the importance of what he said about it's hard to get trees right now. That just increases the value of the existing trees and just reinforces why it is and was originally upsetting that all of those existing trees were cut down. Some of them with good reason and some of them potentially needlessly. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Scott. Jim, I do thank you for this, and it does answer at least questions that I had. I do echo Scott's comment about clearing and grubbing everything. It's just sort of, unfortunately not my vision of how to do this. But that's just personal opinion. It has nothing to do with any recommendations from here. If there are no further questions, everything has been met so far. He's come back with everything we've asked for. Do I hear a motion on this project?
Mr. Chairman? I move that the application for a minor subdivision for properties identified as lots 77, 78, and 79, Block 28, at 610 Fifth Street in the R1 zoning district, be approved.
Do I have a second? Second. Do I have any other comments? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it. Okay, now we'll go back to new business again. And surprise, surprise, review Chapter 410 subdivision of land in Chapter 507 trees. Okay, John, I think John just took the off road.
Mr. Chairman, I asked for this to be added to this week's agenda, or this month's agenda, because it became apparent after we began to deal with the 610 property that, from my standpoint, there needs to be a review of the nexus between Section 410, which is subdivision of land, and Section
Chapter 507.
Chapter 507 on trees, to make a clear connection between the requirements for various things that need to be done with trees if you are coming in for the subdivision. And that would hopefully, if we're successful at doing this, avoid having a repeat of the rather messy situation we had approving this last one, because it will be patently clear to people who want to do that they have to pay attention to both not only what the requirements of the subdivision are, but the tree requirements, not the least of which is that currently says you won't do anything to the land until you get your approval. And so that was the point of my asking to put that on. I had addressed or looked at specific sections of 410, 410-14, which is section subdivision construction is restricted, and that's where it says you will not start anything until have application and final approval. And I don't know if that's the place to put a citation or reference to Section 507, but that's at least one. And I don't know, Susan, if you have any particular recommendations on where it should be, but.
As we talked about yesterday, when we were talking about this, it's not, we don't see a lot of subdivisions. We don't have big parcels. But it's also important for partitions when we subdivide two lots. And it's always been the practice to issue the demo permit prior to them asking for partitioning or subdivision, so that the lots don't have any improvements, there's nothing in the way of it. But maybe that's not the way to do it. If we're thinking about it, we have them, they can't do anything until their request for subdividing or partitioning is approved. Then they can proceed with, in that case, we might, instead of trying to put language in here, because they do need to be connected, and right now they're not. Maybe it's put on the application. And we just have it on the application that they must meet the requirements of Chapter 5, what is it, 510, as well as this.
50, yeah.
Yeah.
Would this, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'm going to broaden this discussion out just a bit, because I've wrestled with trying to come up with an approach or a language that would ensure that the town, in particular the building inspector, is aware of what's going on in town before things happen. Right now, and so right now, our code does not prohibit a property owner from doing whatever they want with their property. They don't have to come to the town for a permit to cut a tree down. They don't have to. Now, some of the residents, if they live in a development like Bethany West Recreation Association has a requirement that you have to notify the Bethany West Board of Directors if you want to cut down a tree greater than 6 inches. And there may be other locales that have the same thing. But, and so I thought, should we think about prohibiting the cutting of any tree greater than like 6 inches without a permit?
If I may interrupt
Yep.
just for a second. One thing, I do like the way this came around. I mean, sort of a backdoor way to get something done properly, I think. But as the planning commission, we have to be somewhat careful of how we step forward with ideas. With the 10-year plan, when we do that, or any updated 10-year plan, we have general direction from the town council to go fix it the way you think you need to fix it, then give it to us and we'll approve it. And that's essentially for everything we do, but that's, you know, it's sort of an open book. When we start talking specifically about permits for trees or cutting trees or anything like that, we have to be somewhat careful, because then that is the planning commission making a determination as to what should be done for the town. Without the town council, who's our boss, saying, we'd like you to look into the tree thing and possible permits. So from the chair, I'm sort of thinking we can have this discussion. I like it. But I think we would be best served if either we requested through the town manager or through the town council that we can really do some work on this, if that's what they want. I know it's sort of a screwing comment, and I do like the discussion, but I don't want to put, the town and council may decide, well, we don't want to start getting permits for trees, or the town manager saying, I don't have the staff to do this, and we only have one poor staff person anyway. So I think we have to be somewhat careful.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, had you let me finish my thought, I would,
Out of order.
I think we would have arrived at the same point.
Okay.
I'm not proposing to put something before this commission about requiring permits or anything before a guidance or a fuller discussion. But I wanted to at least share, and maybe others have had the same thought, what kind of approaches are there to ensure that we keep this town as beautiful as it is without unduly imposing the government on anybody's property rights or whatever? I mean, Rehoboth they have a whole tree department.
So do we.
Right. But, so there are examples out there of other communities and how they are choosing to regulate or to approach this that we could share with the town council. But my only point was, I think we still need to have this discussion about how to ensure property owners have as much flexibility and rights as possible, but also is there some way of alerting people that that before they chop, they should call the building inspector or whatever. I mean, it's not an adversarial relationship, and it would be helpful, one, for the town to know what was going on, and then also to be able to provide guidance to people on what to do. I mean, again, without consultation with the town council, you have call before you dig, where you call a number before you dig anywhere to make sure you don't cut line, whether or not having a call before you cut notice on our application also, so that people would call and say, look, here's what I'm thinking of doing to help the town better be in front of things that are happening rather than having to catch up.
Okay, thank you. Lou Kilmer, please.
Since I was really involved in actually creating this ordinance, a little history I think would be important. One, in the early parts of the development, especially west of Route 1, a lot of the developers were coming in and they're literally putting in saplings. And that was our idea of so we had to do something to stop that from happening. And to address your question, John, our tree ordinance is actually modeled after the Rehoboth tree ordinance. So we're really in sync with that. The other thing we dealt with, you have to be careful about infringing on people's rights, especially when it comes to like vegetation, trees, and stuff like that. There's a fine line you really can't cross. Asking them to, can I do this or can I do that? No. I think what we do is, how we deal with that is with subdivisions, either minor or major subdivisions within the town, which aren't many anymore. But the point is, everything had to be identified on it, and all the trees that obviously are gonna be part of the footprint have to be taken out. But you had to identify all the trees that are on the property, and any ones you had to remove for whatever reason, they had to be replaced if they weren't in the footprint. I think the whole premise that you're talking about, and also is important to you, is I think we are addressing that issue. I think, you know, when people do come in and do things, but I think the only thing that I would change is that when they violate it, it really costs them. Financially cost them. You know, not just something, a slap on the wrist. I mean, let them know that if they did something on their own without Susan's knowledge and it's already gone, it's going to cost them. I'm talking about a significant fine, not something that's trivial. Something that they know is I better talk with the town before I do anything. And I think that is an area I think that should be addressed, to make it a really financial burden to them.
Thank you, Lou. Of course, that's something that we'd like to, like town council to say, look at that, and that may even be under the code and enforcement area. Ms. Mayor?
Yeah, I like your idea about, I think there are probably some things based on this experience that you might want to look into, but I do agree with Mr. Boswell. As you know, the way the Charter and Ordinance Review Committee works is that if we think that there is a need for a certain ordinance, for example, as the canopy and tents, we put together a white paper and submitted it to council, and we did some vetting on it as to what we proposed to do and why we thought it was important, and then sent it to council for direction, rather than getting into the nitty-gritty beforehand and sending something that was very specific. So I agree with you on that, and it also saves the building inspector some time as well. As you know, we only have one, and her time is well spent in other areas too. But there might be some alternatives. She might suggest them offhand, but it doesn't have to involve a lot of work, just something that this is the need we see, these are the reasons why, and this is preliminary work that we've done.
Yeah, I think this is akin to what we heard from Cliff yesterday, because the town is backed up with a bunch of projects, and they just, at this point, staff-wise and maybe money-wise, they just can't take everything on right now until they finish certain things. So I really think a white paper would be a great idea from us to the town council, saying, here's what we're thinking of talking about. Do you have a problem with this? And that way, it not only goes to the town council, but it goes to your senior staff people who run the manpower or person power. I'm not quite. When I was working, it was manpower. But so sorry, everybody. But run that through the staff, because, as I said, we do have a tree committee right here, and it's Susan, and I'm not quite sure how much more we're going to drive her out. She'll be in Rehoboth, back in Rehoboth. But that way, the town council can get a full view of the staff situation, as well as have a chance to breathe and decide what it wants to do, whether it wants to proceed in that direction or not. So I happen to like John's comments, and I think if we're a 2021 tree town.
Tree City, USA, yeah.
Yeah. We ought to act like it sometimes, and I think the evergreen situation is probably one of the first ones that came out.
Can I add
yeah,
one thing to that?
Scott,
Well, I guess number one, if you've read the op-eds flying around lately, you'll know for sure that the town council is anti-tree. We were very anti-tree. Yeah. Anti-wetland, anti-tree.
boardwalk.
pro paving. But seriously, I think obviously town council is open to suggestions, I think. But we do have to follow the right process for that. As it relates to this specific issue, I don't have the code in front of me, but if there's not something in there that just says in Chapter 410, subdivision of land, see Chapter 507, could we simply just add that into the zoning code? It does say that already, okay.
Not in the applications, I didn't see it.
Or maybe like front and center on the application too. And then,
Putting it on the application would be the easiest,
Yeah.
quickest way to get it
yeah,
done, is just they have to fill that part out.
yeah, because I think,
We'll change
to Lou's point, about is there a significant fine rather than a slap on the wrist? You also have to ensure that the developer, if it's the first time they've ever subdivided a lot, they might not, they could be big name developer, like with an office in Virginia, as we saw today, or it could be, Joe Q Public, who like is just splitting a lot and developing it, and they might not know. And I think you can, hopefully they've come and talked with Susan, and she's given them the advice on how best to proceed, but simply adding it to the top of the list means that they can't not know if they've read the application, which is basically the minimum of their duty. So I think there's sort of that carrot and stick thing, right, where you say like, you're kind of asking them to do the right thing and see it, and then if they don't, you can have a fine on the backside. But I'm also struck that just these things, in new business B and C, this discussion on trees, in old business B and C, are all really one in that they're part of potentially a Green Bethany initiative, and that they're probably good things to just be discussing in terms of the comprehensive plan and in terms of our discussions with IPA.
That gives us a little flexibility, the comprehensive plan does. I think one of the things that we've failed to do over the years, and that's our own fault because we have such a close relationship with the town council, is to use the services of our representative to the town council. So instead of us going directly to the town council and the mayor, we should program any white papers or any requests to you, Scott, as you're the representative of the town at the board, and that way you can bring it up in whatever form the town council decides to do those things. I don't know how, I'm not sure whether there's a procedure for that, but that would be your procedure, not ours. So I think the best thing for us to do, and not disagreeing with you on the greening of Bethany, is that any requests that we have to go to for questioning, to go to the town council, should come from us to you, and then you bring it to them. And that way, we don't get into the official, well, you had a meeting on this, or you didn't have a meeting on this, you didn't call in the general public, and I don't want to get into that, because we want to be open to the public. So unless somebody has a problem with that on my left side, that's what we'll do, John. I'm
Not
sorry.
wearing purple.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I agree with everything you just said. So in section 507-14, the tree section, there is already a section for violations and penalties. This is violations and penalties related to trees, removal, and so forth. But
You
it
wanna
is,
read that, John?
I can,
How long is it?
no, I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Well, no,
All right.
because we have people watching, and
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. So I'm looking at, thank you, sir. I'm looking at section 507-14, violations and penalties. Any developer violating any provision of this article shall, upon conviction, pay such fines as set out in Chapter 1, General Provisions, Article 1. It does not spell out at this time clearly what that penalty is. And that might be the area to which we could ask our liaison to the town council if they would be agreeable to looking at that, looking in this section to come up with a recommendation as to what the amount should be per tree or whatever we might think to recommend.
Yeah, is that the planning commission or is that the code committee that does that? I always get the two confused. Yeah. Right, that, yeah, that's, it. Yeah. On that, but the penalties are the code,
Okay.
yeah, so it's two,
Mike?
Lou?
He's just saying, we'll just put it on the building permit, what the,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's a great idea.
because the fact that it's what, they see it, they sign it, they know what it is, rather than sitting there going all through the code.
I agree. I agree with
What, what is conviction? How are they convicted?
Excuse me,
I think it's
my
the
question.
Yes.
building inspector says, you're-
The penalty for removal of trees on unimproved lots within subdivisions and/or planned residential developments is $500. A tree.
a tree.
But that's for a subdivision. Right.
That's 507-5 is $100 per day, and 507-2, trees and vegetation on public property, that's if you go on our property and destroy something not less than $100 or more than $500.
And Mr. Chairman, in the case of 610 Fifth Street, the developer was cited by the building inspector, and it went to court, and we lost, because the developer said, look, the code says that I can do whatever I want on my property. And the building inspector said, but this was unimproved property. And they said, no, 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 it had a house on it. Well, the house, all the utilities and all had been disconnected. But the judge ruled in favor of the developer to say that it was his own property. Am I messing this up? Probably.
I think that his opinion was that, well, first there was a long discussion on, because we sent 3 citations, one for each lot. And there was a huge discussion on what's the difference between one parcel, 3 lots, 1 lot. It took most of the time. Secondly, he believed that it was improved, and this has unimproved lots because the house had been on it. And the point about it being disconnected from everything sort of got lost in that conversation. So, yes, he found in favor of the applicant of Evergreen Homes and dismissed it.
So wherever we end up, having a clear warning or alert to a developer or whatever, so that we don't get into these kinds of gives and take, would be helpful and I think an improvement to your point, Lou.
Yeah, and that brings up another question, what's an improved lot, what's an unimproved lot? And you're right, if there are no services to the lot,
It should
water
be.
and wastewater, it's not an improved lot, you can't build them, you can't, yeah.
That is, and technically, we've been making them do everything before they come here, so that there's no violations or encroachments or anything. But I think that if we look at it in that we want to see what's there before you go ahead and subdivide or partition, and that's part of the tree ordinance, maybe that should be added, that it's improved or unimproved lots prior to partitioning or subdividing need to have an existing conditions survey provided so that it can be seen what is actually there now and what they intend to do.
I think if you're aware that they're planning to subdivide, because, I mean, I understand the logic behind requiring the house to be demolished. You know, in that case, the house to be demolished before you're allowed to subdivide, so that the house isn't straddling a lot line or violating a setback. But then issuing the demo permit sort of gives them, you know, broad license to cut down whatever they want, or in their minds, broad license to do that. So if you're aware that could be one just like, you know, procedural change that helps prevent that, is to require the demolition after the subdivision, not before. I don't know what that does if somebody isn't upfront with you, doesn't tell you what they're planning to do. They just come and ask to like demolish something, you give them a permit to do that, and then, you know, a month later they come in with a subdivision request. But
Lou?
A simple change is just say any lot, and take any qualification of what the lot is, any lot. And I think that would solve all the issues. This way, we don't have to say whether it's developed or not developed, there was a house there, just say any lot.
Yeah, that's,
One word change.
that's all.
I agree.
Mark, do you agree?
I've been reading through this a few times. I have a question that I'm just curious about. In 507 definitions, the definition of a tree says any woody plant with a trunk 8 inches or more in diameter at 4.5 feet above natural grade level. What is the relevance of that in any of the rest of these requirements? Or the areas where it states planning and zoning will make the decision on trees that, you know, suitable size or anything else. The 10 trees we just approved in the previous discussion are 3-inch diameter trees right now, which are arguably
base, yeah.
at the, you know, it's like a gallon bucket, Home Depot size that you put in the back of your car. I'm curious, like, what's the point of this particular definition, or how is it applied?
and what are you before you're 8
So
inches in diameter?
does that mean anything less than 8 and removal is fair game?
I think that, again, the difference is about removing a tree versus replacing a tree.
Right,
So obviously, certain size trees, we don't want to have removed if they aren't in the footprint of a structure.
sure,
But at the same time, on the flip side, there's also a requirement of having a replacement plan.
right,
And you obviously have to be realistic about the size of a tree that you can, that are sold on, you know, a regular basis.
Yeah.
So that has to be a smaller scale
Right.
than one that is already existing.
yeah. So I guess I understand that. It seems to me then that the definition, as it's stated here, needs to be specific to what you're removing.
What to remove.
And that's not quite clear to me reading through this. It just says, you know, it's referring, the word tree comes up 100 times in 5 pages. But does that just mean that it's 8 inches or more? Anyway, I think as we look at maybe some tweaks or adjustments to this, that might be helpful in further clarifying trees that, you know, that we're looking to not remove.
I mean, again, you're taking out a tree, there's a replacement plan that
Right.
you have to, you know, but you have to define what a tree is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Initially, you have to
Exactly.
define what a tree is.
But I think, Mark, your point is that definition of 8 inches in diameter may make sense in terms of like, may make less sense as a definition of a tree and more sense as a description of what you need to show on a tree survey that will be removed.
Exactly.
Because by that definition, the things that we just approved are not trees.
Not trees.
But it's, you know, and try telling that to the tree's mother, you know?
And if the 3-inch tree was stated at the last meeting, that's the required minimum code size, is that correct?
We are agreeing today.
Well, then I think the Planning and Zoning Commission, if they want to make some changes, again, have some changes that you proposed in a white paper.
Yeah.
Send it to us, and then we'll do it, see what, but definitely go in existing codes and see how they operate. That's basically, when I was in the code writing phase of my life, I wouldn't reinvent anything.
Yeah.
I would basically look at how other developments, but both within the state and also out of the state, how they deal with various issues. Because in no sense of reinventing the wheel. And a number of times I actually called them and asked them what areas do these things work? Are there any things you would recommend changing in your own? So I mean, I think at the end of the day, we were just trying to be proactive here because there was nothing on the books really.
Yeah.
And
No, I actually think, professionally speaking, when we're looking at a lot that we're going to develop, that's where we start. We ask the surveyor to identify every tree that's over 8 inches or more in diameter, and then, what we would try to do, architecturally speaking, is save as many of those or all of them if at all possible. So 8 inches is sort of I don't even know where it came from because we've used it for so long. So it's like just this like built-in, determination of what's a significant tree and what are you trying to save. So I think the 8 inches at 4.5 feet, there's some merit to that. I think, Mark, what you're pointing at is it just sort of contradicts some other things that are down the line a little bit.
I
So
can tell you where that came from. It's the length of an axe head is 8 inches.
is that right? Feels good. Look, if you say it with confidence, yeah, you got to fake it till you make it.
That's untrue.
Did you read this on the internet?
Actually, when I was in court testifying, an expert witness once, my attorney explained where following a red herring came from. He says the North people used to drag dead herrings so that they could get people to, the dogs who were tracking them go away from them, and everybody goes, oh, that's pretty cool. I asked him later on that night, he said, I never knew that. He said, neither did I, just made it up. It sounded pretty good.
I mean, this could be made up,
So,
8 inches and 4.5 feet.
well then, I think if we're going to get into the trees, as opposed to the bushes, but if we're getting into the trees, there are so many things. This could be 25 meetings because, don't plant certain trees near water lines and, it's a diseased tree. Do we take it down? Do we not take it down? So I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to put together a small subcommittee of maybe two commissioners to look into the tree situation so that we could have a small white paper to discuss at this meeting, that if we agree to something, we could give to Scott to discuss with the council to see if they would like us to go in that direction, because I think we can discuss things without, having to go through a lot of things. So I'd like to recommend John, if you will, and Mark, if you will, to get together, and it doesn't have to be by next month. I will leave that open. We'll discuss it next month, but at least next month, if John and Mark could come back and give us an idea how long you think it'll take to come together and come up with a discussion item.
and also involve the town arborist.
The arborist?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
You should involve, at least, if you have a plan, to have him look at it, make sure,
Yeah, we could do that. We'll ask, I guess Susan, once we get something, we'll ask you to ask.
Are you the arborist? Susan the
No,
arborist?
it's a tree. Well, if, we can ask you to ask Cliff if we can use the efforts of,
Can it,
yeah, as a chairman, I'm a little reluctant to ever ask the staff to do much more than I've already dumped on them, so,
can I suggest that the focus and at least initially be on where it came from about the, like, development of lots, both, you know, I think it could be both single residential lots, but also lots that are intended to be subdivided. So that the white paper can be relatively simple and easy to achieve. So it would be like, the specific issue at hand right now is there's nothing preventing a developer from cutting down all of the trees on their single lot that they own. That's the thing that I think we want to, like, a developer or a private individual. So that's the, in my mind, with my town council hat on, that's sort of the specific issue that I think we need to solve at the moment. And then there's this other overarching tree protection thing that may be included in your discussions, but should be more geared towards the comprehensive plan.
That's fine with me as well as long as everybody else. No problem?
Well, just one,
Yes, sir.
don't forget, we have a unique scenario here in coastal towns where we have property owners who aren't residents. So they have a whole different ilk on their investment properties, and obviously spending money isn't one of them. So, you know, they have to take that into consideration also when you're doing it, because I mean, they should be required to sit there as if they were a resident of that property, you know, and not to be, you know, an absentee landlord that, you know, that doesn't want to get involved in this. But I think it has to be directed on, you know, on the property owners, not necessarily, who are many times the residents, but focus on the property owner's responsibility. Because not every resident here is, not every property is a resident, so.
Sure. Good. That takes, yeah, D. I'm looking, we've done everything but the D. Does everybody agree that we've sort of taken care of all the old business with, right now? Okay. The only thing we have left is back to new business. I apologize. I wrote a note next to it about something else, the wrong person here. New business item D, University of Delaware Institute of Public Administration, comprehensive plan meeting proposed for July 16th, 2022. Planning and Zoning Commission. Terry, could you speak to that, please?
I lost the microphone. University of Delaware would like to come meet with you at your next meeting. They will go over what they've covered, what they've done so far, and what they're doing is updating our land use maps, both existing, we're trying to do that, and then they're refreshing some of the language and not major restructuring, but just restructuring some of what you gave them and what you've been working on. But one of the things is it's very difficult for the University of Delaware to come here on a Saturday. So they would like you all to think about, is there a time during the week, like a specific weekday, and then we'll meet on that regular day, you know, like close to, just so it can be a workshop, so that you can all be here. It might be whatever you guys say, we'll try to accommodate that. But trying to have somebody come down on a Saturday from the University of Delaware. And
I
then
wouldn't
come
wish
down-
that on anybody.
Yeah, that's asking a lot, especially during the summer. So if that might be something you want to do now and figure out.
Yeah, I think,
what-
well, we have,
Is it a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday?
yeah, we'll have to do
Friday's
that now so that
either.
we can get the appropriate notice
But
out.
that's, if you can maybe get a couple of days that might work, fit into their schedule. And he would like to discuss that. William DeCourcy, he goes by BJ. He'll be happy to have that conversation with you next month.
Great, thank you.
He'll be giving some brief updates. Yeah, a discussion about how we get started, where we're at, and where we're going to go, or where we'd like to head. And that involves you all, so.
Okay. And I would invite the, Ms. Mayor, your entire
Yeah.
council to come
I'm
listen.
sure some meetings will want to be joint meetings between the planning commission and the council. I'm not sure which, if all of them, but some of them at least, yeah.
All right, I'm not going to recommend any Friday, but we are locked into public notice for August, right?
We have a,
So it can't be July.
I guess we could do July, if we, I mean, we have, what, today's the 17th?
Today's the 18th.
18th? So we have, you have to get the notice out, how long does it take you to get that ad in? Okay, so it's gonna have to be probably August.
August, yeah.
Now, we can, do we have anything pressing for next month? That you know of?
I'm trying to think, I do have something for August, but I'm trying to remember what. Oh, I think that's, no, that's Board of, what? Right, we have Pondview. They're moving that line back to wherever it was before.
I'm confused. Why can't we meet?
Oh, just have a meeting without having like a work session? Yeah, we can do that,
I
yeah.
think a work session would just require a week's notice. You're not changing anything.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, well, we can do that. 16th or, yeah, we can pick some, what dates, give me some dates.
We're gonna have BJ DeCoursey come on your next regularly scheduled meeting,
Okay.
and he'll just go over everything. And then from there, you guys can decide what day of the week works best to have regularly scheduled meetings. It might be every other week, it might be monthly,
Okay,
whatever. But I think you only need to work on the comp plan. I think you only need a week's notice, a 7-day notice for FOIA.
work session, you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
We need that for the, we need the, first one is the work session.
July, your regularly scheduled meeting for July
Is that?
will be the
And then we pick another date after that.
Then you'll pick like every
Okay, got
Thursday
it.
or every other Thursday or every Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever date works, whatever day of the week works best for you all. And probably have either bi-weekly or weekly meetings until we get this thing done.
So the-
Probably bi-weekly.
So they're coming July 16th.
July 16th is our next
Yeah.
scheduled meeting.
John, what's good for you? Not Fridays or Saturdays.
Doesn't really matter to me, other than, you know, an occasional medical appointment or something. I mean, that's-
John, what are you doing on like July 4th? You got that date?
July
that
4th,
date open?
John.
You know,
Just got a box of matches.
It comes every month. July 4th comes every month, John.
Wow. Tough crowd.
Yeah, didn't it?
yeah, well, I can't do it on the 4th of July, that Monday, okay?
And John's gonna be leading the parade as the, in his little spiky shoes. Okay, I don't know, any suggestions? How often? Well, we really don't know until we talk to BJ. Yeah,
What day of the week would be most convenient for all of you to meet? Would it, like, do Tuesdays work, or Wednesdays, or Thursdays?
nothing happens on Wednesday, right?
Wednesdays?
And it
I'm
could
flexible.
be, I think it could be, you know, and what time works? You know, is it, you want a morning meeting, an afternoon meeting?
Oh, morning,
evening
definitely.
meeting?
Yeah, and give them time to get down,
Yeah,
you know, not 9 o'clock, I
It
guess.
maybe like 10 o'clock to,
Yeah,
now we know it could be 10 o'clock.
and you guys want Wednesdays, is that okay with everybody?
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm here.
They're gonna pay you no matter where you are, right?
You know, if you could get compensated for gas, I mean, whatever day it is, I'll come. But I just paid $90 to fill up my truck, come down and go back, so that's an extra trip for me, and I'm just being,
Why didn't you drive your electric car?
We could zoom him in.
Station's right
We
there.
could zoom him in.
Yeah, we could put a Zoom on you.
And I think Zoom would work. If you wanted to do some of these by Zoom, that would be fine.
Okay.
Well, why don't we, after the first meeting, we'll see how it works. I
that
mean,
works,
if,
yeah.
you know, for John and for BJ. So
Okay.
Wednesdays would be a good day.
I'll send that information along to BJ, just so
And-
he has some
and
idea.
then if he could co-
Hopefully that works for him, so.
Yeah, well, if it doesn't, let us know, but
Yeah.
Wednesdays would be good, and I guess, you know, if he could think about how often he thinks we should meet, that would be good too.
Like, this, you can all talk about this in July when he's here, but I'll let him know what you're thinking.
Thank you. John?
Mr. Chairman, what are we thinking about for August?
We're going to fireworks on the 4th.
Yeah, I know, well,
Talking August?
the third Saturday in August is the 20th.
Yes.
And I'm just asking, do you see the need for having a meeting, or are we not having
We
a
have a
meeting?
partition.
Pardon?
We have a partition.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I needed to know.
You asked a tree expert. All righty.
Talking about partitionings, the house on Garfield, the Onifree house, is gone. There's a steam shovel there, but
Oh,
it-
Yeah, that's right.
so a decade's worth of discussions and so forth, taken care of in one day.
Well, if we'd had another nor'easter based on everything we talked about, it
Yeah.
would have flooded away sooner than that. So. Okay, I think we finished, and I think we've summarized it 2 or 3 times, so I don't think I have to go through a summary of the action. Our next meeting is the 16th, and thanks, Terry, we will have the Delaware people here, University of Delaware people here, appreciate that. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have to sign these?
Yes,
We have
Oh,
to
we have
sign
to
these.
sign these.
yes, sir.
Oh, I thought.
Thank you.
I thought you were giving these so that we could make wallpaper out of.
That's right.
So did I.